Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Walter Bosley channel. And we just wrapped up the second Nymzacon, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. But before we do that, let me see. I gotta. Oh, okay. Just want to make sure my camera's doing weird things here. Whoops, no, not there. There we go. There we go. It's all good. Just want to say hello to the live chat. We have Tim Houston and Bumbleberry and Ari Babel, and I'm sure more people will jump in as we go. And as I said, we just wrapped up the second Nymzacon 2024. It went well. Today we're going to have some folks who were there, some folks who are part of putting the whole thing together and in integral parts of putting the whole thing together. And we're going to talk a little bit about this year's event and probably talk about how we're going to do next year's event a little bit, because we are going to do another one. Again, you guys know where to get the books, walterbosley.com. And next thing up for me is getting Esoteric Napoleon II out there for you guys. Remember, that's available now at walterbosley.com for pre-orders. And our pre-order went pretty well with the Nimza book last year, so take advantage of that because it's a lower cover price. And it doesn't hurt us for you to pay the lower cover price. So take advantage of that and go pre-order your Esoteric Napoleon II now if you get a chance. So let me see. Let me get out of here and see who all. River Dog Pitbull has joined us. Gustavo Garcia Echeverria is here, and I know I saw another name pop up there, but there we go. That's it for now. So let's bring in Maliah. Maliah, I'm bringing you on. There you are.
Hello.
There she is. So I'm looking forward to having the folks on.
Me too.
To talk about this year's Nymzacon. So if you want to, D. Dorothy's here. If you want to bring them in, let's get to it. And
we have here with us right now Dave Simmerly. Sorry, Dave. He is our tour guide and was also a presenter. And then we have Michael Dark, our veteran Nymzacon attendee, and hopefully more next year. We'll be talking about that, Mike.
Absolutely. So, Michael, tell us a little bit about yourself. You are a scholar of some very interesting things.
Yes, I guess you could say that. But I can only stand on the shoulder of giants, right? Yes, a resident Nymzacon veteran. I went last year. I was one of the handful of people that were there, and I dabble in some other things. I'm a practicing alchemist. I do some blacksmithing, leather crafting, herbalism kind of stuff. So kind of a man of many trades. And thanks to Olav, probably going to be dabbling in some occultism as well. So
there we go. Always interesting. And of course, we have our friend Dave Allen, who is Olav's co-host on the Enigma Hour. It's KAAD, correct?
KAADLP 103.5 FM Sonora, or wherever your favorite internet tuner. We're on the radio. Cool. I'm here at the Tuolumne County Historic and Research Center. We're doing some research. We're putting together right now a book, a Weird Tuolumne Visitor's Guide. Ooh. So we'll have it all together in one book.
That should be really cool.
There will be a chapter on the books of Dellschau.
Excellent, because that's one of our favorite subjects around here. And of course, as we said, we just finished up our second Nymzacon in celebration of things Dellschau and the Sonora Aero Club. And Michael, let's jump to you. Give us your impressions of, between the 2 years you went, what was the best thing you noticed about this year compared to last year?
Oh gosh, the best thing? I don't know if I could narrow it down to one, but I mean, it's hard to argue with both of what I experienced, because while it was so cozy, being in Olav's den, and the small group allowed us to really get to know each other and sort of build those friendships. Having the conference center was great. I think you quadrupled the amount of attendees this year. That was a really nice spot there, surrounded by trees right there, just easy to get to in Sonora. The presentations were new. It wasn't a recycling of what we encountered last year, and last year was absolutely fascinating. This year equally so. But having Olav present the new research on the soup was fascinating. Dave went through a whole anthropological historical thing, which was fantastic. I don't want to give away too much because you're supposed to be there, right? But and similar to last year, many attendees traveled multiple states to be there. Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, Washington. Last year we had people from Texas and Tennessee. So yeah, and you got dark journalists this year, which was that was super rad. Alan Greenfield, Joseph Farrell never disappoints. So it just it felt like last year, just bigger. It's still small enough to where we can get to know everybody, get to talk to everybody. Right. We can all fit around a table to have lunch or dinner together. And so that cozy feel was still kind of there. And I really enjoyed that.
Oh, excellent. Well, thank you. That's that's one of the best critiques we could get, is from an attendee of both, to kind of point out the things. One of the special things we had this year was Nymzacon. Not only did we go to we had it in a conference room, in an actual conference room with a screen and a lectern and a sound system, projector, and all that. But we also carried it out into the town of Sonora with Dave's fantastic contribution of putting together, in a courtyard of the Tuolumne County Museum there in downtown Sonora, just this great display of a replica Aero Goosey, another model of the Aero Idea, I think it was.
The Idea, yeah.
Yeah, and Dave, that was great. Tell us more about,
I wanted to make sure that people got a feel for the times of what it was like in 1857 or around there. This building was actually built in 1860. It's on the National Register of Historic Places, where it's the red brick, the iron shutters. We had a little band. If anybody had seen the Back to the Future 3 movies, there it is. The Hill Valley Band, the ones that were backing up ZZ Top, that's who we had performing. And it was all acoustic. The thing about the musicians here in this area, actually, they have been declared by the state of California as an intangible cultural resource. They are playing in the same style of the people that were playing in the street in the 1850s. So instead of learning their songs and style of playing from records, they learned it from the people that were already playing in the streets. So that music that you heard on that Saturday was actually 170 years in the making. But that 19th century scientists, explorers, you're talking about this is like they represent the first generation of Americans, and they're all there building America. And during the 19th century, during the time of Charles Dellschau, air transportation was the latest thing. Everyone was experimenting with that in one way or the other.
Right.
The guy that started Scientific American magazine in 1850 had a little 30-footer. He took around and trying to find investors that would invest in a big one to go from New York to San Francisco in 3 days. That was the goal originally, to do transcontinental travel. And I hope everybody got a feeling for what life was like in the 1850s here. I just love that era of the scientist explorer era of the 19th century.
I know, right? Yeah, the now let me get this right. It's the Tuna Ship Band.
Oh yeah, it was they got to play steampunk, so they brought their steampunk goggles and called themselves the Starship Tuna.
The Starship Tuna, and their outfits were just so awesome.
A 19th century parade kind of costumes, and we also had a representative from Columbia Volunteer Fire Department, number 1, and that he's a member of an organization, has been there since 1850. Yeah. And we also took segments out of Charles Dellschau's recollections about the Sonora Aero Club and how they started their meetings. So it's like a little mock meeting of the Sonora Aero Club. In fact, after everybody went away, I did have that feeling of a revival of the Sonora Aero Club. I can just see all of us at the saloon exercising our jaws if we can get Michael to set them up and expound upon the virtues of 19th century airship. I came away feeling that. And I'll agree with Michael that there's just this sense of family that's happening. So we are part of this like club, or this hidden thing that people pass under the table, and everybody kind of receives it with a wink, like we're in the know. So it's like this little exclusive club, and more people will want to join in our not so secret society.
That's right. That's right. It's it's the hipsters, in our group. But the group, we welcome more. We welcome more. I think that
of all stripes.
Yeah, I think that having the bigger group just it brought even more energy to the event, I think, and it really it's encouraging to have that many people be interested in this, and we certainly are wanting to. We're talking already about doing it next year, and the difference, River Dog Pitbull, between us and E. Clampus Vitus is we don't summarily deny that the things we're interested in are real. We're open to them. I know within the group, the greater world of Dellschau enthusiasts, there are those who say, "Oh, he was just an outsider artist." There are those that say, "Oh, he wasn't telling the truth. He was making it up." And to those people, I say, "Well, how much time have you spent in Sonora digging into the story? Because you may be surprised."
That's one thing that I found, that after you live here for a while, like one of the places we visited on the tour was Montezuma, because Peter Menace mentioned that he went over the Montezuma Mountains. Everybody's looking at maps, said, could that be Mexico? Because there was a Montezuma Mountain there. But no, it was the Montezuma Mine, which was nearby where he lived. But he would get in his little Aero Goosey with his little dog and take off and go on adventures. They'd be gone for days. And people are, is he ever going to come back? Did he get in an accident? And then here he'd come. One thing that I noticed that you're right, the detail that Charles Dellschau writes in his recollections, the Sheriff Stewart, the Sanguinetti store, the Fred Freund, who made Freund's masterpiece, the rigged bed. He was a cabinet maker in the sexton, and he was always ready to play and prank. And a lot of those stories, the antics and the pranks that the miners would pull on one another, that just rings totally authentic.
Yeah. The man was he clearly visited Sonora. At the very least, he truly visited Sonora. And
he was working at Wolfling Butcher's shop. I mean, unless you actually lived here, or maybe got newspapers of the era and looked through the ads, I guess. But he worked at the butcher shop, and I could show you where the butcher shop is. It's still there.
Yeah, well, I would say getting newspapers. I would say even in the 1890s, getting newspapers from the Union Democrat or whatever it was in the 1850s, but it's not as easy as it is today. Because
no, I'm sure that. But it's interesting to note that the Union Democrat is the longest lived continuously published newspaper in California.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, Michael.
No, is that the Motherlode? My Motherlode?
It's called the Union
newspaper
Democrat.
that you're talking about?
Sonora Union Democrat newspaper.
Oh, the Union Democrat.
The one that's still there. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Right? Been publishing since 1849.
Yeah, it's a print publication. Wow. It's funny when we start our forges at the blacksmith shop up there in the hills, we use old issues of the Union Democrat to get our coal fired. So, I don't know if that's good or bad, but we're recycling in a sense.
There you go. Hey, there you go. Well, Michael, what's something that you'd like to see next year when we do this again?
What's something that I'd like to see? Well, the same lineup of guests. The same lineup of guests would be awesome. I think that there's, it was it's thematic but eclectic at the same time, and I think that through your channel here and the folks that you've had on, you've got many other options of people to present if you wanted to bring in their research. I liked your talks with Joshua Kutchin. He was very interesting, and others. I know we've had some transtemporal discussions with alien scientists and some other folks. So I think there's room to expand the offerings of topics. Should you want to go that route? I was thinking about the size of the group of the attendees that were there, and in retrospect, I feel like if it were any bigger, the current format probably would need to be changed around a little bit, caravanning and stuff like we did with touring all the sites. And
we need a tour bus.
That's what we're doing next year.
We've already decided to change that.
Yeah. So I think we've kind of reached an upper limit as far as that's concerned. But what I like about the being there is the people. The topic, of course, we're all brought there on sort of a common topic, right? But I keep using the word the coziness or the friendship that we're able to develop there. This isn't like Contact in the Desert or some of these other large gatherings. You are in the room with Walter and Maliah and Seshuri and Olav. They're right there. When it's time to break for lunch, you can go and sit down and have lunch with them. There's not some some paywall to get an autograph and a photo and armed security guards that you have to fight off, some sort of weird cult of personality. It's the accessibility that I really like, and I hope that as this grows, and I'm sure that it will, it has to. I hope that is maintained, and it
will be because I started. I did a few trips with David Hatcher Childress, a guy that I've known for 22 years now. And I got to tell you, no matter how big the group is, David is accessible. He's not one of these snooty guys who you see him during the tour and then in the evening you're not allowed to, see him or social. Not at all. And I like that. And, I sell my books because that's the fruit of my labor, right? And but I'll never charge anybody for an autograph. I think some people walk up to me and I'm just flattered they want me to sign their book. I know it's a thing that authors you expect, but believe me, every time somebody asks you to do that, at least for me, when they ask me, that means something. So, I like that. That's important to us, and I'm glad that you value that because that's important. Maliah and I have discussed that. It's nobody is so big that they can't interact with the folks who've come there to see them and do other things. So we will always be accessible. And we already on the drive home we already talked about getting a van or two, however many we need, with the driver, and
maybe even 3.
If
we might even need 3 vans.
Let's hope we do. I hear what you're saying about it not getting too big, Michael, but let's hope we fill that room, because I think with the with the right accommodations, I think it'll still be comfortable and fun, and it'll work.
So if it grows big enough, you can have breakout sessions. You can sign up. Oh, I want to go skywatch with Olaf. Oh, let's climb up Table Mountain.
I want to go. Exactly. I want to go on the paranormal investigation with Maliah, because we understand too. I just want to say this really quickly. For me, I understand that doing a paranormal investigation isn't for everybody. And so being able to kind of break away, and whoever wants to go do that, I think is a really good idea, because talk about, let me put it this way. Every single house in place where I turned my devices on, my little ghost boxes, Alice box and my broken radio, every single place there is communication back in a big way. Clear, understandable, very, very wow, oh my goodness, of a spot. Now, this is 5 towns that are doing this. There was Twainhart, Sonora, Columbia, Jamestown, and what's that Chinese little camp? One up to the Chinese camp? Yes. And all 5 places are hot spots for paranormal activity, at the very least, communication with spirit boxes and this kind of stuff. So it's super fun, but it is not for everybody. And I totally get that. So you're right, Dave, being able to have kind of a breakaway groups and stuff, we're going to consider that. We're also going to add 2 days. So we're going to extend it so that we go all day Friday and all day Monday. And we'll break up the speakers a little bit so that we just have speakers in the morning for 2 days. And then we can go after lunch and go do fun stuff, right? Go explore different places. So there's a lot of stuff in the works for next year. Yeah. Definitely, everyone, mark your calendars. Next year is going to be, the 3rd one is the charm. Yeah. Second one was great.
You got to go into one of the houses in Chinese camp. You met one of the residents there.
Yes, I did. Okay, so this little lady is just very happy to communicate with us when we arrived, and she was delighted. Now, 9 times out of 10, I'm getting responses on my boxes that are like, Satan, demon, go away, get out of here, very negative stuff. It usually goes that way, because spirits that are trapped are usually grumpy about it. This was not the case with this lady in Chinese camp, this lady ghost. And she was delighted to have us. She asked us to come back again. And she had quite a bit to say. It was just incredible. There's so many things there.
I can confirm over the 2 years now that I've gone, Maliah's got those boxes on everywhere. Last year, in the middle of the night after dinner, it was like midnight. We're walking around old historic Columbia, and she's got her ghost boxes on. And it seems like every building we pass by, there's words coming through, there's phrases coming through. I think you guys visited the cemetery that year, and then this year we got to go to the Dome, which was super rad. I saw you took off down that creepy little corridor there to talk to some of the spirits there.
I got some good footage too.
Ooh, can't wait to see that. Yeah.
Spooky.
It's and last year we went to that historic hotel in downtown Jamestown and got to hear that fascinating story of the husband and the bride. Yeah. And then there was the creepy antique store as well. And then Dave introduced us last year, and they were again this year. Those two women who were vending the recycled plastic art with the butterflies and the dragonflies and all that.
She's the one that made that arrow.
Yeah, it was hanging in her tent there. And she relayed the story to us last year about how basically every house there in downtown Columbia, because that's where they live, has got ghosts in it. And she was telling me all kinds of stories about the rowdy miners that live in there and how they can be a little grumpy, like you said, a little mischievous.
She told me she has a ukulele band, and they went to go practice. As soon as they start, all the appliances went on in the house. And, so they can be quite tricky.
Yeah,
definitely tricksters.
Yeah, yes. And if I may, please don't misconstrue when I talk about the size of the conference. I want this to grow. I definitely do, and I appreciate that you guys are doing everything in your power to maintain that close knit feeling that we get. And like I said, when Dave allowed us to go on the air there at KAAD. I've never been on the radio before. That was pretty fascinating. I just wanted to sort of echo those sentiments to the people that didn't hear that about this. And it is so refreshing to be in a room with people that you can mention stuff that you wouldn't normally be able to mention to other people, and you don't get 1,000-yard stare. You can bring up Cliff High. You can bring up quantum entanglement. You can bring up ghosts and Bigfoots and all of the things that we talk about surrounding all of this stuff. And what you find, the longer you talk to these people, your peers, your peer group, our secret little not so secret club, you find that through so many disparate channels, it led us back to here. And some of us found Walter through Dr. Farrell. Some are coming from completely different sort of off the wall things, but that's how it works with these topics, is it kind of just weaves you through, and it all brought us together. And I really feel a tremendous sense of community regarding this, because maybe I speak for a lot of people in the audience, maybe I don't, but a lot of our friends and family, they're not into this stuff. They don't understand. Right. They think it's kind of weird and fringe. And this is a place for us to build a community surrounding research and friendship and stuff. And I don't know. I was thinking about it a lot, and I highly value it. And I'm glad that you guys are taking that to heart and want to continue to build such a thing.
Well, thank you. Well, sorry, go ahead.
Well, like you're saying there, Michael, some of the side conversations that started to happen amongst the attendees I got drawn into a few of them, so I got to kind of hear them, were just absolutely fascinatingly phenomenal. From Friday night, we're all sitting down at dinner, and it was just buzz, because, like you're saying, like-minded people have things to say and share, and that is what happened. I mean, it was just blah, 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 everybody sharing with everyone. There was no exclusion happening. We're like Walter likes to say, how does that go? We're all we're nuts or something like
Oh,
that, but
yeah,
it's our
we're
nuts.
we're nuts, but there are nuts.
There are nuts.
We're all nuts. We're each other's nuts. And that could have a funny meaning.
It's where the alternative is mainstream.
Exactly.
That's a pretty good tagline. I like that. Where the alternative is mainstream. That's excellent.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Maliah. I'm sharing the link to the show.
Sure thing. Thanks for sharing and liking, everybody. And welcome those of you who are new. We're happy to have you in the Bosleyverse. Go check out walterbosley.com at the shop for all of Walter's books. We have lots of upcoming new projects coming on too. So pretty soon here, within a year, you'll see lostcontentlibrary.com begin to develop. What we're going to do with it is a big surprise, but you will find a very special library begin to grow. So we're excited to kind of start work on that project. It's a big one, which is why I'm saying we're forecasting about a year to really get it out there, to make it fully available. But it will be a full library that houses, let's see that way, Lost Continent and everything to do with Lost Continent. So I'm talking reprints. I'm talking getting involved with a lot of the people that we already have on, authors and different things. We're going to connect with their work so that you guys have a comprehensive library of the Lost Continent and all the themes that go along with that. We're also going to be launching Nymzacon.com, the official site, so that from on we'll be able to have merchandise. Tickets will go for sale on there because we're definitely doing this as an annual thing, an annual event. And next year is going like we've been talking about. We already have a lot of ideas in the works. We're going to work a lot closer with the community now that they know who we are. And Chamber of Commerce and many other people are getting involved with Nymzacon, and they're really, really excited to have us in Sonora. Right, Dave? This is the fun thing.
The County website. Yes, we were.
Well, going back to what Michael was saying a minute ago too, with we try to put together, Dave, like your talk the other day on, is it Professor Snell?
Dr. Snell.
Dr. Snell.
Cabinet of Curiosities. That's excellent context, historical context for the world of Tuolumne at the time of the Sonora Aero Club. And this is one of the great things you do with your presentations is you give us that historical context, and I think that serves to further support what Dellschau was saying as he was telling a true story. He had really been there. He was at that time a young man, but a man of those times. And I really think the Dr. Snell presentation that gave even further context as to the kind of people that were drawn out here to California in those days. Because think about it, they were the people who didn't want to be mainstream. And yeah, in some cases there were shady characters who came west because they could get away with stuff. But still, it was the people who didn't want to be in the big cities of the East Coast. They didn't want to be what back then was mainstream. And we know that Dellschau told us that these particular German immigrants who founded the Sonora Aero Club, they came out here to California and settled in Tuolumne greatly for that reason. They could pursue their arcane research and machinery and test it really away from the prying eyes of the cities. And they weren't the only ones who were drawn to Tuolumne County, clearly, with the Dr. Snell context and others. I'll be honest with you, last year is when I learned for the first time that Tuolumne County, specifically Sonora, has among the most UFO sightings and
Number
Bigfoot.
5.
Yeah, in the
Number
country.
5 in UFO. Number 3 in Bigfoot. And that's nationwide.
Yeah, that's really
Something must be happening here. The thing I like about in the 19th century, their thoughts were so big they needed that extra room to
yeah,
be
that's
able
right.
to express their thought. That's how come they had to come out here. They needed the elbow room to express their lofty thoughts.
Yeah. So, Michael, you know a little bit about alchemy, things like that. Understatement. Would you say that, if you had to guess, that the Sonora Aero Club guys, Peter Menace in particular, but you know the guys are really the heart and core of it, would you say that they were alchemists who were, I'm going to say, practical alchemists, not necessarily into the more occult nature, if that's possible, but the practical, nuts and bolts alchemy? Or would you say that these were guys who might have had some occult, mystery, secret society type of interest and connections, if you had to guess?
Regarding those connections as far as the occult, I would default to Olav on that. Regarding the alchemical stuff, in my conversations with you and with Olav in the back channels there, and considering Olav's presentation, we have some sneaking suspicions that alchemy may have played a role. And I don't know how much of that talk we're able to kind of divulge here, but
right.
I had the opportunity to talk to my teacher yesterday, and I brought up some of the stuff that I was thinking about it. And I hadn't got a chance to tell you about this yet, so I'll reveal it here. My supposition with the stones is possible. The process of working on that was confirmed, and so now I just need to begin work on that. Regarding the soup and the discussion about potentially creating an arms race was absolutely fascinating. My understanding from a little bit about metallurgy and a little bit, just a tiny bit about mining, I'm sure Dave probably knows a tremendous more about it, is that every miner had to be sort of a little bit of a chemist as well. They obviously they use really caustic materials, mercury, to pull some of that stuff out. And so they were all, in a sense, chemists, and it would be difficult to separate the chemistry from the alchemy. It was hypothesized that perhaps some of the Nimza folks gave them sort of the if I could draw the analogy of long division, right? You're learning math and you're in grade school, and they teach you how to do long division first, and then later they show you the secrets and the shortcuts, and they give you a calculator and allow you to do it a whole lot easier. It's entirely possible that these folks were given the long division form of another technology, another process, another product, if you will, that was more refined, that existed in the back channels and was kept away from these groups, lest it get out and become sort of common knowledge, hence the sort of arms race thing. So I'm not sure if any of these folks were, they may have been unwittingly doing things that would be definitely considered alchemical. One of the whole principles that most people think of about alchemy is transmutation, and somehow or another they were able to take something and were able to generate lift and drive. And Olaf mentioned I think it was Olaf that mentioned the ways in which energy can be created, and he delineated the 3 or 4 types that were there, and all of those needed to be present in order for these aeroships to actually take off and do what they were going to do, which it's somebody figured it out. And
yeah.
I'd like to do my part to back engineer that and see if we can't get some concrete evidence as to what it was in fact they were using.
Well, with the threads I've pulled, as you guys know, to me, you have this story from Dellschau of this kind of thing going on in the 1850s. And we even have an illustration, which I presented clear back in my 2014 book, or 13 book, Empire of the Wheel 2. And then in 2015, in my origin book, again, I republished this. The bell, essentially what we are told was, this Nazi bell thing, the basic, it looked like that the Sonora Aero Club was using some type of proof of concept of that idea. And, I argue that both these parties got it from somewhere. Now, there is literature out there that connects it with Vimanas of the Vedic literature. However, the literature that people point to the most is not ancient at all. It's, maybe about 100 years old, but it was only translated into English in the 1950s. So you have this issue of Dellschau, as I attempted to do in my presentation, which, folks, I'm going to be redoing that on Friday night, a special live episode. Basically, you find specific things in ancient literature, ancient description of ancient flying machines. You find specific things in the Rig Vedas, okay, that are in Dellschau's artwork. Now, unless when we prove that Charles Dellschau could read Sanskrit, or had, I guess, if he had a German translation of these Vedas, you could then argue that he read that and okay, maybe created this out of whole cloth. Then that's possible. We have to acknowledge that, okay, how many German translations of the Rig Vedas were out there, and did Charles Dellschau have a copy of that? But that would be the one way I could think of that, he knew about this from another source. He knew so much clearly that Dave has confirmed, that I've contributed confirming, Olav and others. He clearly had been to Sonora and Tuolumne County. So, you got to ask yourself, well, why couldn't he have witnessed these men at least attempting, men who did know what was in the Vedas, and on and so forth. So that's the thing is the way I see it is they were developing something that they had been told about. And then you have what these guys are doing in the 1850s, and it's only 40 years later that you have the 1890s airship mystery. Okay. And when you really dig into the 1890s airship mystery, you see all the same technology that was in the Arrows in those 1890s airships, but more advanced, just like you would expect in that 40 years, more advanced. So this was something somebody was passing on, or this was some type of, tradition that maybe alchemists and secret societies, were sharing and passing, to the initiated.
My opinion is that the alchemists, these early scientists, the sciences were not well defined back in the 19th century. You couldn't go to school and take geology or chemistry. You had maybe travel to Europe to do it, but the American universities did not teach that. So when I think of Dr. Snell running his assay office, and I try to describe it with his furnaces to burn down the minerals, and he was in the process of doing alchemical things. And everybody kind of had to be a polymath. Things were drawn from different sources. Things weren't quite defined yet.
Yeah.
Dr. Snell's library included books from the 15th, 16th century.
Yeah, we can talk about it a little bit. So just to recap, guys, I will be posting very short clips from the producers in one video that will be a highlight recap out there for free. Everybody can watch and see this one. However, I will also be not posting on YouTube, but on our website, walterbosley.com. We'll be posting the entire presentation of the conference, bits and clips of it, edited version of it, not edited in the bad way, bad media way. I'm saying edited in the let's make this short and get to the point kind of way. So there will be that for sale, and each speaker will get an affiliate percentage back, kickback. So we'll be able to give our speakers, that as well. Royalties essentially is what it is. So, announcement. This is what we've decided because as the attendees know, Todd Wood was not able to join us, unfortunately, and he is getting better. But a unknown, unforeseeable event kept him from the event, and I'll let him share what he wants with that. So our videographer, who was going to be there, became moi. So I did get some recordings of the presenters, and this one of them some kind of tech glitch happened on our last one. Maybe it was just timing. I'm not sure yet. But like I said, we will put together a full-on thing because every single thing that every one of our presenters gave to us on Saturday. And here's the thing, guys. Nobody except between Walter and Sesheri, they talked about what they were going to talk about. But as far as, Dark Journalist, Dr. Farrell, Olaf Phillips, Dave Simmerly, they didn't share with each other. Maybe Olaf and Dave, you guys talked about what you were going to talk about. But we didn't all know what everybody was bringing to the table.
I forgot what Olaf was going to speak on. You want to know the truth?
It was jaw drop from my point of view. And what everybody brought, we want to share with you guys, which is why we're going to do highlights and stuff, okay? One of the big things, Walter, I can share this because we've already talked about it, is we're finding alchemical connections. And Olaf's presentation gave to us the highly, highly, highly likelihood that what I and Olaf and Walter and we kind of all went, oh my gosh, discovered last year about the Mariposite possibly being the soup. Olaf brought us a presentation alchemically, and is what Michael Dark is referring to. He's going to go on further looking into this. Yay, grab that flag, run, because we are so excited to find out if this could be that one anti-gravity device that makes it float and fly around.
Well, Maliah sent our sample of Mariposite last year to Jeremy Riss, alien scientists, because they, he said send it on to him because they could test it in the lab, but he hasn't got to that yet. He's been distracted by some other things going on, I guess. But we're anxious for this because, I did a presentation last year on the Rankine turbine, which was published in 1849. And then we see Dellschau in his drawings, multiple drawings of the Sonora Aeros and their system, their motors, their propulsion system, and all that. It's a Rankine turbine. It's absolutely, I demonstrated them side by side, Dellschau's drawing in the 1890s and the Rankine turbine, and it is exactly a Rankine turbine. In the Aeros, But now the thing to do is to get that mariposite, pulverize it into the powder, mix it with the things that Menace told Dellschau that you mix it with, and run it through that turbine and see what happens. It's really that simple. And, I just can't believe it hasn't been done yet. We provided the mariposite, so, we need a lab. We need somebody to give it a serious, honest test.
Well, we're going to run it through some because it's Michael. Sorry, Michael. Go ahead. You go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, I didn't mean to speak over you.
No worries.
There's definitely some room for R&D on the bench top. I suspect I'll be able to get what we think may be the end result of the alchemical preparation for creating the oil of that stone, and seeing, first of all, is it green, and if it's not, what happens when it's mixed with other substances, and then if that testing proves out, then we would need a larger scale model of that particular engine to try to run this through and see if we can actually get lift and thrust,
right.
And see if it will meet all of the criteria that Olav outlined within his presentation. And a little teaser for Olav's part on that, should people want to purchase that clip that you're going to be providing for him. The German connections, and I'm sure Dr. Frell would have something witty to say about that right about now, just keeps mounting. And the individual that he mentioned during his presentation being alive in an area of Germany during a time when there was an alchemical revival, I don't think is an accident, provided that person was in fact involved in that stuff. And the fact that Germans just keep sort of popping up, they're known for their industriousness, they're known for their scientific innovation, and they are definitely known in the alchemical community. As I mentioned, one of the most important texts ever written on alchemy, the Golden Chain of Homer, was produced and originally printed in Germany. I believe it was in 1721. So in terms of research, with Walter's work and going back, I think it would be fascinating to take a dive into perhaps some alchemical texts. And if they were involved, I would imagine that somewhere this information would have been, like you said, passed down, going back all the way, through the Vedas. We're talking thousands of years. This information migrated from there. It migrated to Egypt. It migrated to the Middle East. If it weren't for the Arabic cultures, we would not have alchemy survive today. It had to migrate to survive, and eventually finding its way into Europe, and then across the pond over here. So
maybe more directly, because we've got to consider that there was the Com Empire, which certainly between 194 AD and 600 AD, when we know they existed before they fell to the rise of Vietnam, they were a maritime empire, and they've been recognized as being all over the Pacific. And of course, in the official mainstream Western civilization conceit that whatever they decide people could do and not do is the truth, there's no reason to think that the Com Empire, which was a descendant empire of that former older Vedic empire, which by the way was also global, according to sources other than the West, the Com Empire could have brought that info here directly, could have brought it to South America, and so it might be that it did not need to go through the Middle East and then into Europe. It certainly, I think they had it, but I think they also had it possibly directly from the previous Vedic Empire sources, or interaction with the Com Empire in their own, because I think they certainly had, somewhat of a global reach, particularly the ancient Arab mariners. My gosh, their knowledge. So I don't know. I think there's multiple possibilities there that could have brought it, I don't know, directly.
Yeah, certainly.
Just remain calm.
It would be fascinating if, they're always finding weird undersea anomalies. They find old ships and stuff. I think of stuff like on the History Channel, what is the Antikythera device and stuff, that like a primitive version of a modern computer that really shouldn't exist. This would be fun to explore. What if there were Arrow style ships that were seafaring that would have allowed them to, not saying these folks didn't have the technology to use a traditional sailboat type of ship.
Sure.
I mean, we certainly know the Vikings and stuff had their long ships, and there's a history of this. But how fascinating would it be if we found somewhere in the literature allusions to, well, I think you talked about that in your presentation, didn't you? About how
vehicles.
In Dellschau number 73. If you look at the Dellschau, I think it's number 73. It shows, and in the one on the cover of the Romano book, it says, on water, on land, up in the clouds. In the Rig Vedas, it says, on the sea, on the land, in the sky. So they were using this same technology in their ships and their maritime technology. The Com Empire, they were, likely mostly sails, but the Com Empire could explain the alleged mystery city of the Grand Canyon. And this is, again, one of the things that I think this whole exploring Dellschau and what were they actually doing, it is kind of a roundabout side benefit of it is the fact that it does resonate so much with what's in these Vedic scriptures, and it does open the honest scholar of Dellschau and what he's writing. It opens them up to consider the Eastern histories, because there's stuff in there that they did have it, and it's very specific. And I'll be presenting that again on Friday in greater detail than I did at the con. And yet it gets ignored and pushed aside because, gosh darn it, I'm a product of I'm a Western civilization, man. It's that Western civilization ego that I think gets in the way of. And I think that started with the British and their dominance in India. Had to suppress the local guys to, show how superior you are. Dead air.
I don't know much about the Com Empire, but that would be an interesting intermediary. Certainly looking at the pyramid mysteries. Why are all of these structures dating back to roughly the same time, found all over the world? This technology was obviously very important, and I would imagine the secret to antigravitics and all of that. Well, if you were to look at the Egyptians, right? These mysteries were commonly kept within the upper crust, the priest class and whatnot. This wasn't common consumption for the masses. So, was it an oral tradition where it was passed down? Was it inscribed somewhere? It would appear in probably in their whatever their written language was. So we would need someone to, do you know, Walter, if there's any written accounts in the Com Empire and that transition period that we might be able to scour to see if there's any references to these during that time period?
Not yet. It's something that I'm working on because I just got turned on to the Com Empire really just a few years ago. And it's only been in the last couple of years that I've begun to really see that, okay, wait a minute. They if anybody carried the Vedic knowledge here, it was very, from the East. It's very likely that it would have been the Com Empire. And so I'm still in the middle of, particularly for my Napoleon research, because in the first volume I talk about that lost city of the Grand Canyon being, not Egyptian, not this, that, or the other. They described it as kind of Egyptian, kind of Babylonian, because at that time I don't think those guys were as familiar with the Com Empire or Far East, Southeast Asia to understand what they were looking at. So again, because I see the Com as a descendant empire. I think they would have been the ones to, and I think that would explain Gene Matlock's work when he points out that there's linguistics. There's Native American linguistics that are almost identical to, the ancient Hindu, Hindustani words and such, which, again, gets dismissed or ignored by your Western historians because, they have their narrative that they're pushing. So I'm still early in digging into it. But again, as you saw, I presented how in the Vedic, the much older literature, there are specifics that match specifically what Dellschau depicts in his drawings. And I find that really interesting. Believe me, if I find a power-driven, something other than sail power, claimed by the Com Empire in their histories, I will share it with all of you and be crowing about it here, because that would be, something
You
spectacular.
seem very excited about the Com Empire.
Well, I'll tell you,
I think we solved our tour problem. So here in a year or two, we'll be traveling on our tour by aero.
There we go. I think all we need to do is get the Rankine turbine going, and we got plenty of Mariposite up there, right? So we can make plenty of soup to power the thing. So
with the ties that go back so far, it has me thinking about, so Rasa Shastra is Indian alchemy, and certainly within what you would consider, Western alchemy going back many, many, many centuries, there are all kinds of fantastical stories about the Philosopher's Stone, about these purported menstruums that they created, these concoctions and stuff, elixirs of immortality and so forth. It would be, I can ask my teacher about it, and I have some texts that I can dive into about Rasa Shastra. It's the anecdotal stories that seem to catch sort of the most traction when it comes to this, that people remember and they think about. And I would imagine that with this technology dating back so long, there somewhere there has to be a reference to this within Rasa Shastra, because it goes back, so far. In more contemporary times, they found all those revealed that there were all these scrolls that had been found and held in these temples, some of them dating back 1,500 years, 1,000 years. Perhaps some of that information may reveal itself within those scrolls as well. As I mentioned, this information used to be passed amongst the priest class, and having a repository like that in some of these long-standing monasteries and such may also reveal some, even if it's some anecdotal stories that might be able to point us in the right direction moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Always looking, and I'll be digging even deeper into the Vedic and the Com angle to see if I can find something like that. So far, so good. That's what I'll say. So far, so good. It's looking like that. And what's interesting is too. I talk about this in Esoteric Napoleon 2, the one that I'm writing now. He wanted to get to India, and he was fascinated with this same kind of stuff we're interested in. And, of course, who knows what the British found all that time they were there, because their scholars and their alchemists were definitely looking for this kind of thing. And then, of course, we had, the major buttholes of the 20th century, the Nazis. They went down there, and of course, their interests are infamous. And of course, they're the ones who, I say were were a descendant of Nimza, the Prussian Nimza. And I think they kind of had a little boost from the Nimza guys in what to look for, and then of course they're the ones. My point is, the Nazis are the ones we're told that we're developing the bell, which again, Dellschau provides a rudimentary proof of concept bell in his drawings, dating, he did these between 1896 and 1923. He died in 1923. Okay, that's 15 to 20 years before we're told the Nazis were even messing around or doing their bell. So they couldn't have, and on top of that, Dellschau's works were obscure. They were hidden. They were in an attic. So there's no way, any World War II era Nazi scientists, could have gotten Dellschau's books, to get the idea. I say it was something that, like what you're saying, a tradition, a group holding on to this knowledge, passed it along. And, it's there we have, between Napoleon, the British, the Nazis, and others, there we have India full of mysteries and drawing the right, when I say the right people, I mean the people that are interested in these sort of things, they're being drawn to India. So, I think when you find something special and you don't want to share it, what would you do? Here there be tigers, or worse, that here there be tigers piques too much human curiosity. When you just dismiss it and say, oh, it's nothing, it's, you play it down. And I think that's what goes on, because I think people in the know, people that are smart enough to recognize this stuff, they want to keep what they know of it to themselves. And they don't want, the hoi polloi, the, guys like us to know about it. So I think that's what's gone on with this, this lost Vedic empire, so to speak.
There's all the makings for your secret space program. There's all your makings for these hidden systems of finance. There's all of these, the whole breakaway civilization thing. How far back does this go? I mean, we could argue that the secret societies of centuries, if not millennia past, were the origins of the breakaway civilization. Maybe maybe the original secret space program was in India 3,000 years ago or 5,000 years ago.
Yeah. You never know. We could, I recommend people, mainly for entertainment, but food for thought, go back and watch The First Men in the Moon, the Ray Harryhausen film from the, I think, early 60s. Go watch that. It makes you wonder, what somebody might have known. I believe that was an H.G. Wells story, if I'm not mistaken. But it shows, a guy in, get this, a mad professor type, kind of like Wilson of the 1890s airship mystery, but his name is Cavor, Professor Cavor, and he builds this round spherical craft, and he paints it with this mysterious liquid called cavorite, which sounds a lot like the soup, and it creates anti-gravity. It by painting it on the surface of this sphere, this space ball, it's able to shoot up, and they go to the moon and they find that there's these beings living on the inside of the moon. But then the movie returns to 1969, or it's before 69. So they're depicting a moon landing, a manned moon landing, the first from Earth. And what do they find? But they find a British flag and and the remnants that these British guys, Professor Caver and the other two, actually had gone to the moon 60 some years prior. So maybe that's what they found on the moon that they're keeping from us, is that they found something that's very old, abandoned craft or something like that. Who knows?
Well, what's fascinating about the moon is that you had the Dellschau books there, and it got an opportunity to see firsthand some of their artwork that I hadn't seen online before. And there's two for sure, maybe 3 images that I brought over and I was talking to Olav about. And in the top left corner, it's kind of in the center of that book, there's a person sitting on a crescent moon. And in the next image over, it's got the moon and a star behind it. And there's this like trail indicating that they're headed out past the moon, past the stars. And there's a person with their arms outstretched, and it can be interpreted 2 ways. It could be interpreted that, to my mind, the person is either reaching out to catch them or is letting them go out because they're in the position of pushing it towards the moon. And I think it's fascinating that these, just what you said, about all that perhaps being in alchemy, we have to be highly interpretive of symbolic imagery within pictographs, because that's how a lot of this was transmitted.
Those illustrations are from George Newell's dream sequence. It was a dream sequence that he shared at one of the Aero Club meetings. Somebody did get stuck on the moon and it had to be rescued. The symbol, a recurring symbol that I would take as his little is a crescent moon with a chain. Did you see that, with the guy hanging on to it and the arrow underneath him? And that's repeated over and over again. So that was like his little distinguishing symbol, sort of like if we made Aero Club pins, it would be that little image of the guy hanging on to the moon.
I like that.
Those images that you're describing is part of a dream sequence that George Newell had and shared with the Sonora Aero Club. And if you could get the text to that, you could probably find lots of Jungian stuff in it.
Well, yeah, the Jungian symbology, in that analysis in Newell's mind would be very interesting. But here's another interesting thing about this is Sonora Aero Club couldn't have done this in the 1850s with what they were doing. But 40 years later, the great airship mystery of the 1890s, I talk about in my book Origin, Oliver Heaviside's gravido-electromagnetics. And in that, he talks about how you could create a force field around an object. So to go way out, as Joseph Farrell says, on the tip of the limb of speculation, imagine how if, around 1899 or 1900 or in 1903, we have this legend, this claim that Tesla was commissioned to build a Tesla, one of his own airships for a group to fly to Mars, in 1903. Okay. And when you learn about Heaviside having come up with his theory in the 1890s, you got to wonder, well, if they had enough power, could a GEM, gravido-electromagnetic, protective shell have been generated around that Tesla airship that would allow for life support, systems to work within that shell? And therefore, could somebody, in the late 1890s, early 1900s, have attempted to go to Mars? Or, I'm sorry, the moon, in this case. The legend is that it was Mars, but, it seems like somebody would have attempted the moon first. Even if they died as soon as they got up there in the Van Allen belts, we would have seen that, or it would have come crashing down. Or if they got through, say, the Van Allen belts, and if they aimed themselves the right way, who knows? Would the relic be out there? That's a whole other discussion. Very complicated, because we know the math that was required, the precision math that was required for them to reach the moon in 1969. So what have you. It's just very interesting. These concepts were being toyed with and developed, that long ago.
So today you talk to NASA scientists, and they get into the field. He says, well, because I watched Star Trek. That got me interested in the field. And back in the 19th century, you had Jules Verne, Robert the Conqueror, with airships flying the sky. And whatever can be imagined is true or can be true. Yeah. And that's where it started, that inspiration. The communicator became the flip phone. I mean, these things become reality. If you can imagine it, it can become real. And that's the reason why I find the 19th century so fascinating, because everybody was filled with this imagination.
Right.
You can find examples today how the NASA scientists were inspired by Star Trek or stuff. I listened to one where the lady was anthropologist or archaeologist, and she said, and she's a leader in her field. She's doing DNA analysis and stuff. I said, well, what was your inspiration behind getting into this field? And she straight out said Indiana Jones. How people can be inspired by popular culture, and the two go hand in hand. Things are invented. The two just go hand in hand.
Absolutely. And the thing that inspired you might not be what comes to fruition, but it's the things you accomplish on the way to that vision, right? That are the accomplishments, the things you'll discover that are there, that are real, or the things that you create, that people make real. That's what's important, So by pulling these threads that we're pulling with the Aero Club, I think we're going to find what is real, what did happen.
The dream of flight goes way, way back.
Yeah.
But by the middle of the 19th century, it had literally reached a fever pitch because everybody saw it within their grasp. I mean, I have photographs of airships that people built in the 1890s, and they certainly don't look as fancy as the Dellschaus. But people were either attempting to build these things or had built and flew these things. It's not out of the realm of possibility. The United States legislature gave an incentive that anyone that could build an airship capable of transcontinental travel, they were going to get a stipend. And I think that's what inspired the Phantom Airship mystery. All these people saying, wow, the government's going to give me money if I can get an airship across the country. And there were competing organizations, companies that during the 19th century, even Ambrose Bierce had his airship company where he was trying to develop airships. That was just the thing. And another interesting thread to pull is one of the most popular venues, or one of the venues where everything seemed to be happening in Sonora during the 19th century, was the Turnverein Hall, which was the German organization. Wow, if we could eventually find a roster for people who belong to the Turnverein Hall Society, I bet you it would be the roster of the Aero Club.
And NIMZA members, serious NIMZA. It's that and the Titans of the 1890s that Todd Wood and I have been pulling threads on. You might see some overlap there, because that's a mysterious group of industrialists, and several of them date back to the Civil War. in military careers and in industry and such. And what's really interesting about the gravestone that Maliah found of Peter Menace, a Peter Menace in Sonoma, who the right era, right spelling. There is a Sonoma connection that I'm just learning about that from Secherie, Sonoma connection to these airship guys. I had been looking for a Civil War era source for Solomon Andrews, who built the flying machine that he demonstrated for Lincoln's war cabinet members. And, if with Maliah finding this gravestone and the date of death is unknown, it's very possible now that that is the Peter Menace of the Sonora Aero Club, and that he knew Solomon Andrews, or somehow that they met, and Menace could have shared what he knew with Andrews. And you guys know that I suspect, because I wrote about this in Destination Carcosa, that I think the airship mystery of the 1890s, I propose the possibility that the airship mystery of the 1890s is a product of the development, 30 years of development between the end of the Civil War and the 1890s, because I think, as Joseph Farrell again suggested over the weekend, that Edwin Stanton did not turn Andrews down, that the U.S. government did indeed, in this hypothesis, go ahead and take him up on it. And then starting at the end of the war, it would have been America's first black project, so to speak, black technology project, because you have Colonel Samuel Tillman, who connects to the Army in that era. He was a chemist, he was a cartographer, all the things that we see connected to the airship mystery. And he is named as one of the airship crews in the 1890s who talks to witnesses. And this is a real guy who, he was commandant of West Point for a while during World War I. This is a real guy. There's photos of him. He was in the Cosmos Club, which, our friend Daniel List is really pulled threads on that. So, there's all sorts of reasons to not dismiss the airship mystery and the Sonora Aero Club as just stuff that's made up. Anyone who does is just either being stubborn or lazy, and they're talking out of ignorance, because everybody I know who has spent 5 minutes giving this a serious look comes away not buying it was all an April Fool's Day joke, or it was all in Dellschau's imagination, because there's just too much there. And this is the beauty of what we're doing at Nymzacon. Between all the speakers and presenters, what we're doing is we're carrying the Dellschau Sonora Aero Club research ball way farther down the field. We're standing on the shoulders of Pete Navarro, Dennis Crenshaw, Theo Pymans, Michael Busby, oh my gosh, the guys who wrote the book. These are guys who, and even Bloomfield Moore talks about this stuff in the book about Keeley, the one that I have right here. This was published in 1893, I think. We at Nymzacon are really the group of scholars that is taking this Dellschau research seriously. And we're finding things that no researchers before us have found. So, that's another reason to come to these events, and why we appreciate all of you who have come to them already, and all the speakers and presenters, because this is a bona fide mystery. And really, the folks you're going to see speaking at Nymzacon have done the best and most recent cutting edge research on this topic. And so this is why it's real fun to have these, and we look forward to doing the next one next year. So we're down to 5 minutes in our show. This hour and a half has just gone by really fast. I want to give both of you a chance to take a couple of minutes and, again, your final comments on Nymzacon 2 that we just wrapped up and what you hope to see next year. Dave, go ahead.
Hey, wait a minute, Walter. First, can I jump in with a comment from early on, and that I think I know you'd like to address?
Okay.
So, by Marsh Oak Dojo, or Tim Pruitt. Thank you, Tim. I've read your Time Traveler book, Walter, and the Secret Missions 1 through 5. What would be better to read next? Origins and Nimza, or Empire of the Wheel 1 through 3?
For this subject, strictly what we're talking about today in Nymzacon stuff, I would read Origin and Nimza first. However, Empire of the Wheel 2 also directly addresses Sonora Aero Club topics. So you could do, but again, the way I wrote Empire of the Wheel, the way I read all my books is best to read Empire of the Wheel 1, 2, and 3 in order. But if you're talking about this particular subject, I would read Origin and then Nimza first. And those can be found at walterbosley.com. So okay, Dave.
I'm looking forward to continue to explore life's little mysteries with everyone together. You know, the best things come as a rule that of those people who belong to a group. So when brilliant minds get together, things happen. And I look forward to offering balloon rides for the kiddies. And and it would be nice to have a full menu of events to choose from with breakout sessions. And I mean, just, it says, what is it? It says reach for the stars. And but that's just the beginning.
Yep. I like that. That's true. Well, thank you, Dave. Your contribution, as always, was fantastic. And
let me introduce really quickly. Here's Brad. He's a coordinator for the Historical Research.
Oh, hey, Brad.
Society, and he's really been helpful in a lot of ways. And there he is. Couldn't be
hey,
done
Brad.
without.
Welcome to the show, and we hope to see you at next year's Nymzacon.
Well, actually, he was there, just behind the scenes guy.
Okay, well.
So he's responsible for a lot of the research. He's coordinator here at the Historical Center. What we're trying to do is make sure the museum has, as part of its collection, these things that may be forgotten or a little alternative, but still help create the identity, our identity as a community, which it surely does.
Well, I'll tell you, it's a fantastic contribution, and we look forward to more next year. But still, come on out and let us see your face next year. Come out and hang out with us.
Yes. Awesome.
Hey, Michael, you got any last thoughts?
I would just like to express my gratitude and admiration for the body of work that you've brought us, Walter, and both Walter and Maliah, for going through, I'm sure, a Herculean effort to put on this conference. There's so many logistics, and I'm sure, like you said, your mind's always churning about how much bigger and better it can be. It can be next time in iterative cons. So I would encourage anybody who sees this and comes across this, please come make the trek. It truly is it's just a wonderful atmosphere full of wonderful people, unforgettable conversations, friendships are made there. I'm still in contact with people last year. I'll be in further contact with people this year. It's good food, it's good time, it's good history. Dave I've mentioned to him this before, and I hope he doesn't take offense to this, but he's kind of a Twain-esque persona. He's a walking encyclopedia of knowledge.
That's
Of
true.
not just the region, but of just so many disparate topics. And in a lot of ways, everyone that I encountered there is the same. And it's our own little brain trust, our own little group of weirdos that have all the accumulated information. And I would just encourage people, folks are coming from all across the country, and it is absolutely worth it to be there in person and to explore all of these strange mysteries in an area that is steeped in strange mysteries. So
Right.
thank you very much, Walter and Maliah, for making not just myself but all of us feel welcome and at home, and for just putting together an event that we can all thoroughly enjoy. I don't have a single bad thing to say about it. It was truly a fantastic experience, and I look forward to next year.
Awesome. And shout out to Olaf, because, Olaf was an integral part and is for our next year, and just so much. Awesome. Thank you so much for attending and believing in it.
Thank you all. Any of you
coming
attending
to find out
from this year and last year, if you're watching now, thank you 1,000 times. It was so cool to see the response. Maliah will tell you, I was bugging the heck out of her with my I was like, wow, these people, they're spending their hard-earned money and taking their time to travel here, and and they were pleased with the event. So that does make us very happy, and we're going to do this again next year. It's going to be bigger and better, and we look forward to seeing you there, Michael, and again, and as all the others plus. So we'll keep everybody informed when it's going to be and such, and
yes,
it's going to pass by quickly. So we'll be doing this again before we know it. And anyway, I want to thank you and Dave for coming on. And we're at the end of our time, and Maliah and I are going on a ghost tour.
I'm glad you know. I'm so excited.
In a couple of hours, and it's our birthday present, because we have the same birthday, believe it or not. It's our birthday present from my daughter Liliana. So we're doing that tonight. So
we get to go in the catacombs of Mission Inn.
Yeah, it should be
so freaking excited.
Read Empire of the Wheel 3, especially the Mission Inn is talked about extensively in there. So anyway, thank you guys again, and thank everybody in the live chat and everybody watching. And that's it for now.
Hey, wait. I want to shout out to Jonaside and Renee. Thank you so much for attending, and so glad that you guys made it back home safely. And next time, take the train. I'm interested on how that trip goes. And shout out to Karen. Hey, so glad you made it to your destination safely. And who else? Oh, April. Thank you so much for coming. It was just so wonderful to get to meet you and spend time with you and your beautiful caretaker, both of them. They are amazing.
Let's not forget that. So
yes, and we look forward to seeing everybody again at the next one, and those who can make it and more. We're going to be announcing as we get things developed and stuff how we're going to organize this one and do things a tad bit differently. Same core, same principle, but we're going to make it, the other side of the rainbow. So
cool.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, folks, and I'll be back Friday night for a special live episode where I'm going to be giving the presentation I gave at Nymzacon here, but a little more detail, a lot better. So looking forward to it. Everybody have a good night. We'll see you Friday.
Ciao.
Thanks, guys.